Okay, so today we're going to have a conversation about a part of our personality that, when it's blended with a particular mode of behavior, can be incredibly demanding from a black and white perspective on the things that we should or shouldn't do. This particular part is usually the first reaction to an active schema in our system, and it's often responsible for some of the most uncomfortable emotional experiences that we're desperately trying to avoid. So today, let's have a conversation about our own internal demanding critic. When the demanding critic is present in our system, our thoughts are basically focused on how things are supposed to be. The demanding critic not only looks at the way that we're doing things, but it's also got one eye on the way that others are behaving in the world around us too. The demanding critic has a really rigid perspective on the nature of the rules that it believes should be in place for absolutely everybody. This rigidity of belief revolves around the perspective that there's only one way to do things, a right way, and anything else is simply wrong. When we're acting in this mode, there's usually an expectancy of really high standards, sometimes even perfectionism for ourselves, others, and the world around us. This high level of expectation is often coinciding with a relentless pressure for high achievement. It can also be the case that there's a rigidity to the belief that there are always more things that can be done and always more that can be accomplished. The particular language of the demanding critic revolves around black and white absolute thinking, and it often contains a monologue that's filled with shoulds and shouldn'ts, always and nevers, have to's and cannot type statements. This entire narrative, which only plays out in the internal world, is not only directed at us but also at the people that we're engaging with and the world itself in general. The demanding critic plays a significant role in the activation of the most debilitating emotional experiences connected to our fear of guilt and shame being present in our personality system. Now, the origin of this necessary and extremely important part of our personality is based in our childhood experiences, as it's usually an internalized version of something that we heard directly in the environment around us, or it could be a child's interpretation of these really influential experiences. The internal critics are the instigators in our system. In my own personality, my demanding critic would listen to the story that was activated by the events in my environment and then offer its own rigid and subjective opinion on my performance, along with the way that I was supposed to be dealing with the experiences that I was currently going through. There's a lot of people who think that the way to work with our internal critics is to remove them from our personality system completely, banishing them off into oblivion and eliminating the presence of that negative self-talk that perpetuates our feelings of guilt and shame. However, as with all of the parts within our personality system, this is not only an impossible thing to do, but also definitely not desirable. If we were able to remove our internal critics, we would lose the ability for self-critique, and we would never strive to improve our performance in any way whatsoever. It's actually the case that our own internal critics are an integral part of our personality system. The fact that they exist isn't the problem, it's how they communicate with the rest of our system that creates those uncomfortable emotional experiences that we're generally reacting to. My demanding critic actually holds me accountable for what I should or shouldn't be doing. It pushes me to participate in things that I'm probably expected to participate in, and it also points out the way in which I'm supposed to and always should be acting and behaving according to my true, authentic values and beliefs. Now, as I said before, we have to keep in mind that our own internal critics not only operating with beliefs about our own behaviours, the demanding critic looks at the behaviours of others and holds them to the expectations that are basically associated with the active schema that's in our system. These demands can actually be just as harsh and sometimes harsher on the other people in our lives, sometimes leaving us with the expectation that people speak to us a certain way, that they pay attention to us all the time, that they know exactly what it is that we want without us having to communicate it, or that we should be treated in a way that's beyond the ability and capability of the person that we're expecting this type of behavior from. My own demanding critic was simply regurgitating a narrative that it created as a result of my childhood experiences. It learned the critical language it uses through the observation and then the internalization of the environmental influences that I faced when I was growing up, and this doesn't necessarily always come from my parents. This internalized thought process also doesn't have to be a direct representation of the things that we heard in the environment as a child. Instead, it can be a child's interpretation of the words words that were said. So when we're working with this part of our personality, it's really important to approach it with validation and education. The intention is to alter the impact that it has on our vulnerable parts by changing the way that it communicates its message, not by removing it completely from our personality. Living the life we want to live means working with our own unique personality system to create the behaviours that support us in achieving the things that we want to achieve. This starts with developing our ability to practice the kind of self-talk that promotes positive change, reducing the internal narrative that keeps us stuck in the stories that we created as a result of our unmet childhood needs. When it actually comes to changing the language of these internal critics, in a perfect world, we'd like them to be a lot more like an internal coach. Pick it up, come on, let's get it going. Whoa, 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 wait a minute, you just said this is impossible. That's not the case. But what we tend to experience is often way more like an internal demon.
You are worthless.
Right. Yeah, but what we're actually trying to achieve is somewhere in the middle. A place where we can create the type of language that helps us see the things we need to see that line up with our true, authentic values and beliefs, as well as activating the skills we need to activate in order to make these things happen. Working with this demanding and often debilitating part of our personality is a really difficult thing to do. We have to be aware of the distress as it enters our system so that we can stop, take a deep breath, and observe and describe this demanding critic. That gives us the opportunity to unblend from the emotional impact that it's having on our personality system. And as a result, there's an opportunity for us to use some of the other skills of dialectical behaviour therapy to help us work with this part and change its impact on our behavioural responses. At the bottom of the website page that's connected to this video, you're going to find a PDF that contains a worksheet that's designed to help you identify the language of your own demanding critic. If you can, download it, print it out, and work through these questions slowly. Take your time to identify the red flags of its presence when it's in your system. Use the skills of mindfulness and, as we said before, stop when you feel its activation. Then, once you know what it sounds like and you can begin to notice it in real time, develop the Raven exercise that you need to re-educate it and plan ahead to build mastery for using this skill in the future. If you've got an opinion on this or anything else to do with your own demanding critic, the different modes of behaviour, schema therapy in general, or the integration of DBT and our understanding of the multiplistic personality, leave a comment in the chat. I'd really like to hear your point of view. If you'd like to know more about the things we talk about on this YouTube channel and the connected website, come join the conversation in the live online meetings that I facilitate each week on Zoom. I'll leave some links in the description below. And as always, if you like the content of this video, please subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, and turn on those notifications to get all the latest from me and the Liberation Place. I hope this video gave you some insight for how to identify and then change the language of the demanding critic when it's active in your personality. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Take care, be safe, and be well.